All right, we have Christian speech all over the country being attacked, people going after it. We have places of worship being attacked all over the country. Just recently, for example, there was a spate of attacks against churches in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And that has, quite frankly, brought back a national conversation about the rising hostility that we see right here in America against churches all across the country, literally. In fact, you may recall that FRC released a groundbreaking report last December that showed the astonishing extent of hostility of Christians here in America, the things that people are facing. And earlier this year, FRC released an addendum to that report that examines what's already happened this first quarter of this year, which likewise is stunning to behold. Well, we're watching vandalism, property damage, intimidation. All of these type of things are happening both to individuals and places of worship. And so coming to join me now is Arielle Del Turco, who is FRC's director of the Center for Religious Liberty, and she is the author of both the FRC groundbreaking reports that I just referenced. Arielle, welcome back to the program. Great to have you.
Jody, thank you for having me.
Well, it's always a pleasure. All right, so you were actually quoted in the Dallas Morning News about the recent attacks that have been taking place there in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and different places across North Texas. So let's just begin there. What happened to these churches in the DFW area?
Yeah, so there have been several nasty attacks against churches in the northern Texas area. In one instance, a church was actually firebombed. So it was purposely set on fire with a chemical device and did a lot of damage to the church main doors and entryway, especially. Thankfully, no one was hurt. In another instance, we saw a church vandalized twice in 2 months, and people left nasty, horrible, threatening messages along with swastikas all across the church. It was really a gross display. And this just goes to show that these attacks against churches continue to be a rising issue. And it's a real challenge to religious freedom because a basic part of religious freedom is simply being able to go to church and feel like your church is not going to be attacked. You're safe to go, that you're tolerated and welcomed in a community. So this continues to be a real problem.
Well, what about the authorities there? We have, and I know you know this probably better than anyone, across the country, so many of these attacks, things that have been happening, even against the pregnancy resource centers, all these, they're all kind of related, but there seems to be no prosecutions. No one is ever found guilty of these things, and if they are, there's oftentimes just a slap on the wrist. How are the authorities dealing with this outbreak in the North Texas area? The authorities, local, state, federal, all of them combined, is there an effort to really get to the bottom of it?
Yeah, this is one of the most discouraging aspects of this problem. Sometimes it's difficult for the police to identify a perpetrator of these attacks for whatever reason. Sometimes they're prosecuted, but maybe not as fully as they could be. But I think there's just a lot of political apathy, and there's not always the political will to prioritize protecting churches and preventing these attacks. We see this from the very top. Earlier this year in April, the Biden administration, Department of Justice, they recommended no jail time for someone that committed crimes against a church. I believe they had done damage to the exterior and tried to throw a brick through a window, and they also assaulted a church employee, and yet the Biden administration recommended that this person receive no jail time. So I think this apathy is really coming from the very top with the Biden administration. And so we really need our political leaders to be speaking out forcefully against these attacks, making clear that this is unacceptable and that there is no room for these type of attacks in the United States.
What do you think is causing this? It seems to be, I mean, we've seen this type of thing going on for quite a while, but it's absolutely increasing in numbers and in violence. What is the underpinning issue that's causing this hostility?
Yeah, and it's hard for us to know what's in the human heart, especially with all of these diverse attacks occurring all across the country. But there are a few things that we know are true. We know that the United States is an increasingly secular place where people just understand religion less and less, they understand the value of it less. And so I think that when there is a moment that sparks a lot of political anger, it becomes more thinkable for for people to go against churches, to target churches and take out their rage and anger against them. We live in a culture that really has no tolerance for any criticism of the cultural norms, any criticism of the dogma created by the sexual revolution that's taught in schools now. There's absolutely no tolerance. And this cancel culture mindset, it's really spilling into other facets of our culture, including physical attacks against churches. When we're seeing so many criticisms against churches, people calling our biblical beliefs evil, people attacking us for what we believe about hot button political issues like abortion or same-sex marriage or gender ideology. When we're called evil for that, that really opens the door for more and more targeting of churches, not just rhetorically, but also physically too.
Absolutely. Real quickly, Arielle Del Turco, where can people go to find the religious hostility report and the addendum that you put together?
So both of our reports can be accessed at frc.org/hostility against churches.
Thank you so much, Arielle Del Turco, for joining us on this edition of Washington at Watch and for your tremendous leadership on this issue. We appreciate it.
Thank you.